everybody. Welcome into episode 3 of Half Street High Heat. Thank you so much for listening. I am your host, Amanda White. You can follow me on Twitter at awhite78. I am joined by my co-hosts, as always. Can you guys give your names and handles?
Ryan and Nick over here, the voices behind at DC Nat Shack. Give us a follow. We only follow back elite accounts, so we can guarantee that it's great content.
Yep, and while you're at it, go follow Half Street High Heat. That's where you'll get all the podcast news and notes and some polls asking you guys on your opinions and whatnot. So, go give us a follow.
Excellent. And as always, we are doing this podcast for the DMV Sports Network. You can find them at dmvsportsnetwork.com or follow them on Twitter and Instagram at DMV_SN. You'll find daily content there on everything to do with DC sports as well as college sports. So go check it out. Also, please be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And let's get into things. How are you guys doing? Bryce Harper still hasn't signed a contract.
Bryce Harper is never going to sign.
Oh, God. I mean, I'm doing okay because he hasn't signed. Because the farther we get along, it seems like he's not going to re-sign, and that's when I'm going to be broken.
Yeah, I'm okay because it's not official yet.
Exactly.
But I'm bracing myself for the news.
Yeah, there's no preparation a real Nats fan can do to prepare to lose Bryce. It just.
How weird was it that they played a game yesterday and there was no Bryce Harper? I found it very strange to even. It's the first time since he was in spring training with them in 2012. It's the first time since then that
it's a dark cloud. Honestly, I mean, I have to go see Matt go 0 for 2 and Defo go 0 for 2. That's our reality now without Bryce.
It's like losing your favorite pet and coming home, he's just not there anymore.
Yeah, but instead of him not being there, there's worse pets there instead.
Yeah, it's like
you got the loser pet that you like. That's Michael Taylor.
It's like,
oh, okay, that's a little.
It's like you had a dog for 7 years, the best dog ever, and then your dog goes away, and your parents get you a goldfish instead.
Yeah.
To
Here we go.
It.
This is the kind of high quality content people are listening to this podcast for. For sure. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where things stand with him. Mark Lerner gave an interview this week down in Florida at the spring training facility where he basically said they haven't talked to Boris or Bryce in a couple of months, that they've moved on. And then bizarrely at the end of the interview, he says, but the door's still cracked a little, which I guess means my loose cannon of a dad might still do this. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's either he's a complete idiot or which
seems unlikely.
Yeah. Or he just has no clue what's going on. And he believes everything he's saying, because he said earlier in the offseason that they weren't talking to Bryce. And then reports came out that they were still talking, ongoing discussions. That's when you got the report that the Nats made a significantly larger offer than what was previously reported. So either Mark Lerner's
the
an
details
idiot,
came out on it this week, and it sounds like while it was $300 million, it was backloaded. It didn't have any opt-outs, so it doesn't sound like it was really anything.
Well, that was the offer they gave at the end of the season. That wasn't anything that came out or anything that was offered in the off season.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I get Mark Lerner's kind of in charge right now, but Big Daddy Ted's still alive, and he wants Bryce back.
Yeah, it seems like, that's why none of the analysts, even if you listen to the MLB Network or anything, everybody always ends their discussions at Bryce Harper by saying, well, but you never know what Ted Lerner might do. So there's really no way to know till when he actually inks his signature on a contract. Until then, I don't think anybody really has any idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and Ted we trust, so hopefully
let's hope so.
Yeah, he gets something done.
So, what do you think? How likely is it that it's Philly? That seems to be where all the momentum is right now.
I think it's 95% Philly. I mean, they just they're really desperate right now, and they want to prove that this trade of Real Milo was worth it. So they have 2 years to win now, and I think they're just going to throw all the money at him and be like, "Hey, let's see how much you really hate Philly and come here for $350 million," because those are what they're right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be what ultimately gets him to Philly, because, I mean, there's no debating that he just doesn't want it. I don't know if he doesn't want to
If he wanted to go there, he would have already signed it.
I don't know if it's like the team or whatnot, I don't necessarily think it is, because they have a pretty good team and something to be excited about. But it's Philly in general, which I mean, I can't blame.
He's had a lot of bad experiences with those fans.
Yeah.
And
Has
you know,
anyone had
if he wanted to
experiences?
go there, he has had ample opportunity. He's talking about where he and his wife are probably going to start a family. Like, do they want to live in Philadelphia?
Yeah. So like, I don't blame him. So I mean, it's nothing against the Phillies, but the Phillies fans and maybe Philadelphia.
Ugh.
Yeah, he just doesn't.
Philadelphia is the worst fans in baseball.
He doesn't. Philadelphia is the worst fans. Period.
Yeah,
But,
that's true across all sports.
But no, he just doesn't want to be there. But at the same time, if you're offering $100 million more than anyone else has offered, I could get used to Philly. I think so.
I like cheesesteaks. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's brotherly love-ish. So
I like having batteries thrown at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's the thing. And I think that there's the other thing for Bryce is probably weighing on him is he doesn't really want to go to Philly, I don't think. But also he's really crapping all over his legacy in DC. DC fans are going to hate him if he goes to Philly. And I'm sure that's hard for him to accept. You know, I don't know that he loves the city as much as he professes to, but I do think doesn't want the fans here to hate him and boo him when he comes back either. You know, he's spent a lot. He did a lot of growing up here, and I'm sure that's hard on him.
Yeah, the city means something to him, which is nice to know. But if you just pretend it wasn't Philly, it's just like a team, like just any team. It's tough when you're one of the best free agents ever to hit the market, and your agent, basically everyone's telling you that your market is one team. Like, I'm
sure that's hard to take.
Being as stubborn as I am personally, if someone told me that, I wouldn't want to do it. Like, they're basically telling you, oh, if you want to play, you have to go there. I don't want to do that.
Well, he doesn't have to, but if he wants to get paid what he's being told by, I guess, his agent he's worth, that kind of segues into my next question is he worth $350 million?
I don't think.
Is any player worth $350 million?
Yes, players are, but go ahead, Ryan.
I don't think any player is worth that much money.
Ooh, okay.
I don't either.
It's so much money. And the reason why he's going to get that is just because he's probably the only player in the league that actually drives ticket sales. No one moves the needle like Bryce does, and his marketing ability. Like if the Phillies do sign him, they're going to get season ticket sales and jerseys bought in the next couple of days that they haven't seen in a long time, which is why his value's going to get up there. But I don't think any player is worth that much money.
I think there's only a handful. I'm not saying 350 million is going to be commonplace moving forward once we see like Acuna or Soto or like these younger generation guys in the market. I'm not saying that's going to be their future, but if there was a player worth 350 million, it would be Bryce Harper. It would be obviously a Mike Trout, maybe a Mookie Betts. I don't think there's many more people in that conversation. Like, I don't think Arenado, he'll be a little bit older when he hits free agency, but I don't think he's worth $350 million.
No, and I don't think anybody is either. I just don't think there's any player from a baseball perspective that's worth that much money. Bryce, I could see maybe the argument because of how much he's going to drive revenue in a non-baseball fashion.
Yep, that's exactly my point. Because as Ryan said, he does so much outside of just his on-field production for the game and for the team and like driving revenue and ticket sales and jersey sales and all that stuff. So if you give him a little bit more, I mean, a lot more, but like more in the terms of like more than Machado, I mean, that's almost going to pay itself back.
Agreed, but I also think that the owners are going to be very cautious about that. Philadelphia might do something that crazy because they're desperate to get one of these big names this offseason.
Right.
But owners are always going to have an eye toward what kind of precedent are they setting for future players. They are not going to want a precedent of that kind of a contract where, you know, any player, especially if it's 10 years. I mean, you look at Giancarlo Stanton was $325 for 13 years, you know, but who wants to give contracts that long anymore? Even a player who's 26 years old. I mean, what is he going to be when he's 36? There's just no way to know.
Well, he's not going to be in this contract when he's 36 because I guarantee
I agree.
He's going to opt out around 30 or 31, try to get another big contract. So that's the thing with him and Manny. Like, these contracts are going to be until their first opt out is because both of them are 100% going to opt out.
Yeah, Manny is 100% not finishing that contract as a Padre.
No.
Like, no shot.
I can't believe he signed with the Padres. I'm still shocked about it.
$300 million to live in San Diego, though?
Yeah, you could do a lot worse. But
you could. I've lived in California. The weather's nice.
I was honestly shocked that Manny got 300. I mean, it's not that he didn't deserve it, but just we've talked about it like for months now, just how the market is. And even last year, I was very surprised he got 300, which makes me believe Bryce is going to get what he's asking for. If it's 350, he's probably going to get 350.
I think he's only going to get it from the Phillies, though, and that's
maybe.
I've seen a couple reports saying that the Padres are willing to go to 350,
and that's exactly what I was going to say. Like Ryan,
I'd rather that.
Ryan,
it would be something for baseball to see both those guys on the same team.
Right. Ryan said 95% to Philly. I think if it was Philly, and it still might be Philly, they are still definitely probably the favorites. But if it was like unquestionably Philly, it would have already happened because Philly's been on him since like free agency started. So if it was really Philly, unquestionably, it would have already.
Yeah, if he wanted to play in Philly, he'd already.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes me believe if the Padres are like, "Hey, we got one, can we get the second one?"
I don't know if the fans in San Diego can take it. I've never seen a Twitter fan base freak out like they did about getting Manny Machado.
Yeah, because it was so unexpected.
It was kind of cute.
Yeah, and like for the Padres, they have a great opportunity because the city just lost the Chargers. They don't have a lot going on for them right now. So the Padres can take control of that market. The best way to do that, sign Machado, which they did. If they can sign Bryce Harper, as we just said, drives ticket sales, drive the revenue, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Padres, one, they're going to be super competitive and a team to look out for. But two, like, they're going to be on the up and up.
I'll be curious to see if Bryce is willing to sign there just because of the perception that West Coast players don't get the attention that East Coast players get. So I think that being in a big media market is important to him. So it'll be interesting to see what decision he makes.
He wants to be on the West Coast too. So I don't think.
Yeah, but I think he meant like LA, not like San Diego.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd rather live in San Diego than LA, but that's.
I'd rather live anywhere than LA.
LA.
Anyway, okay. So how will we feel at this point if the Nats pull off the impossible dream and bring him back?
It's just been such a roller coaster this whole offseason because at the end of the season, I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good that he's going to come back. Like, I just feel like it's going to happen. And that's mainly because of how I felt about the Nats and like their unfinished business per se, but also kind of where the Cubs were. Like the Cubs were just strapped and weren't able to do anything. And I think if the Cubs had $40 million to spend, this would have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, I think it would have been done in November or December.
Exactly. So the fact that the Cubs were strapped, I was like, okay, I think he's coming back. And now it's just been such a roller coaster ride that I don't know how I feel. Obviously ecstatic, but it's just like so
it's
torturous.
Kind of hard to even think about at this point. They still have his big giant poster up at Nats Park for what that's worth.
Means everything.
Nothing.
I mean, he's our king. So
I mean, if he comes back, I'm going to be the most obnoxious person in the history of Twitter.
Wait, what are you right now?
I'm just like I'm like a slight nudge behind that, but like you're gonna see Nat Jack at a completely different level if it happens. I am gonna warn people to mute me because I am going to destroy every Philly fan.
Yeah, no disclaimer needed.
I know you are constantly arguing with Phillies fans on Twitter. It's pretty funny.
What I do for a living.
Full-time job.
Let's throw this out there before we move on completely from this topic. Is at this point, with so many other free agents still available that nobody would have predicted would be available at this point, would it be smarter for the Nats to get off the Bryce Harper, the Harper's Bazaar train here and maybe go after somebody like a Craig Kimbrell or a Dallas Keuchel or one of these other big names that's available you could get for less than Harper and maybe, address a need, especially the bullpen with Kimbrell?
It'd be very smart to get Kimbrell, but they're not going to. They're like, if they don't get Bryce, they're just going to stick where they are and just roll with what they have until the deadline.
So it would not be smart to do it right now. If Bryce signs elsewhere, then it would be smart. Like, you got to stay in on this Harper sweepstakes, whatever, until the very end, until it's pen to paper. Like, you have to stay in because Bryce is a top 5 player in the league. Like, I don't care if anyone disagrees. He is absolutely a top 5 player. And you go get a top 5 player if there's one available.
Especially when he's your top 5
Exactly. Player. Like, he's done so much for the city, and there's unfinished business. Like, you stay in that until the very end. If he does sign, then yes, go get a Kimbrel, because obviously Kimbrel's probably the best closer of all time.
And we're going to get into the bullpen stuff a little later.
Yeah.
But I think that there's some room for improvement there.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so let's move on from Bryce for now and talk about a couple of other things. Roster battles. We touched on this last week. Kieboom, so far, there's only been one game, which was played last night. For him, he looked good. What are the odds you guys think that he might, if he has a strong spring training, make the roster over Defoe?
None.
I just,
unfortunately.
Now, do you think it's because it's a time and service time thing?
Yep,
or
100%.
He's going to gain more from playing every single day in AAA than he is from being like the 5th infielder and just playing every once in a while. Like, if they're going to have him up, he's going to play every day. And it's Dozier's job right now. So they're just going to let him develop and try to keep him as long as they possibly can in the organization.
Yeah, and I think it's his job no matter what next year. I don't think, like, let's say they don't bring back Dozier or Kendrick and Defoe sucks again, which is inevitably going to happen. Like, it's Kieboom's job next year, 100%. But
he's the future.
Yeah,
there.
But just for the service time clock, they're going to keep him down. I will say, if like we just have a litany of injuries and Defoe just sucks, which again is inevitably going to happen, like, we could see Kieboom come up like Soto did last year if there's no one in front of him.
There are not enough injuries for that to be
right.
necessary.
Same. Like, I agree, but I'm just saying, if that does happen and it's unquestionably, all right, we're just going to throw Kieboom in the starting lineup. Yeah, I could see that happening, but that's the only way.
Did you see he hit a nice homer last night? I don't know if you guys looked at the box score. I actually watched the whole game because I'm a nerd. And I was so happy just to have a Nats game to watch. But yeah, and then his little brother actually also had a nice double too.
Yeah, he can do that in Double-A all year.
I mean,
I said on Twitter, I'd like to see if they both somehow make the roster, whether it's probably in a year or two. I'd like to see the Boom Boom Pow song, the Black Eyed Peas song. I forget what it's called. I'd like them to work that in somehow in Nats Park if we're gonna have.
All right, that's pretty funny, actually.
I'm just calling that now.
Yeah.
I'm throwing that out there. It's probably years in the future.
Yeah, they're gonna do it, and then they're gonna overuse it, like
right,
Nats
until everyone
media
hates
does.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's all they know how to do is just run a joke into the ground.
All right, so another roster battle, which seems crazy to talk about as a roster battle because Ryan Zimmerman is, face of the franchise, been here forever. But how much do you think we're going to see Adams over Zim this year?
If they're smart, they platoon them.
Yep.
Zim's really good against lefties, especially was last year, and terrible against righties. And Adams hits righties pretty well. He had like 20 home runs and 46 RBIs against him last year, and struggled against lefties. So that's what they should do. It's just one gets righties, one gets lefties. But what are they going to do is just play Zim every day until he gets hurt.
Right, which should be sometime around mid-May.
Yeah, his back's going to start flaring up. And no one's going to...
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I love Ryan Zimmerman. He was my first favorite national. He was everybody's first favorite national. So it's hard to even have that conversation about him. But, it's a business, and you just look at it and think. I always think back in situations like this to, like, Dusty playing Worth in the playoffs because he's the veteran and it's his job instead of giving us the best chance to win. And that kind of stuff drives me nuts. Like, you just have to give yourself the best chance to win. And I don't think Zim every day is that anymore.
Yeah, truly. I know the Nats have a Ring of Fame, but it's kind of a joke considering if you look at who's in there. But Zim's the only one who really deserves to be in the Ring of Fame. He's the only one you can really, like, truly admire what he's done for this organization over his career. But Ryan's right. I mean, if they were smart, they would platoon them, but it's inevitably going to be Zim just because of how much he means to the franchise and its history. I think Zim's just done. I mean, he can still
He's so young still, but it feels like it almost feels like you're talking about a player's at the end of his career, but he's still, what is he, like 31 or 32?
It seems like it's trending towards the David Wright situation with New York. Like, David Wright was on the Mets for the past 4 years, but I mean, he didn't play because he was always hurt. And then he got the nice send off at the end of last season, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like, Zim means a lot to the franchise, and there's a lot of nostalgia there. But for the realists who look at what he can provide us now, it's not much because he's always hurt.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so let's move on again. The next one I want to do is our FYI segment. Last week we talked a lot, or the week before we've talked a lot about the proposed rule changes and those kind of things. So a lot of that goes to pace of play, and people are always talking about the games are too long. But the real underlying thing is MLB trying to appeal to a younger audience. So what I kind of want to talk about in this week is which of the proposed changes, if any of them, do you guys think will actually help with appealing to a younger audience? Because I don't think that necessarily shortening the game is going to appeal to a younger audience.
No, I don't think it will either, because like even if it does shave off like 10 minutes, you really aren't going to notice that. Like 10 minutes is just on average. There's still going to be games that are longer than what the average is, and so on and so forth. Of all the ones to make it more interesting, I mean, the universal DH is really the only one I see with that potential. Just because of the increased offense. Like everything, all the other rules will help with game length, but game length as a whole, I don't see it like really appealing to a younger audience.
I think they need to lower the mound. I've seen this talked about a little bit, but that will help a lot with offense because we're seeing pitching more dominant than ever. And if you look at the last time they lowered the mound, after that, offense increased incredibly. And 4 of the lowest ERAs ever for like the league wide were before they lowered the mound. So if they lower the mound again, there's going to be more offense, and everyone loves more offense. So you're like, oh, there's actually scoring and a lot of offense in baseball. More people are going to watch it. But if MLB really wants to do anything to appeal, they just need to market better.
That's the bigger issue.
Yeah, I agree. That I honestly don't know that a more offense, unless it were a significant amount more offense, is really going to crack through. I think you guys, we talked about this a little bit offline before while we were planning out the segment. And I have 2 sons who are 15 and 18, and they don't watch sports at all. They are just not interested in watching sports on TV. They don't really watch TV at all. They just, everything is streaming. Everything is on their phones or on a handheld device. And I just think that no amount of tinkering with the rules, even if it means more offense, would draw them in, or other people their age. I think what's going to do it is making baseball available where they are watching things. And that means streaming. And right now, baseball is terrible about streaming. You can't, if I want to stream games, I can stream any game except the one I care about, which is my local game.
Yep.
And that just has to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because the issue they want to address is lowering the average age of a fan, which makes sense because it's just increasing every single year. But the way you do that isn't by tinkering with the game and tinkering with the rules. It's making your game more accessible to reach more fans and a younger audience. It's not changing every single rule and making a completely different game. It's just making it more accessible.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you tinker too much, what you're doing is you're irritating the fans who love the game already. And I don't think, like you said, shaving 10 minutes off a game, even if it's on average, isn't going to make any difference. I don't think if there are on average 2 additional runs scored per game, that's going to make any difference at all. So all of this that MLB is always doing to try to, we need to address pace of play, we need to appeal to a younger audience. None of the things they were proposing is going to make that happen unless they find the younger audience where they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And the challenge with Izzo's, the way all the sports contracts are, is that we're probably never going to see streaming for any type of sport. I was like looking up last night, and with MLB's contracts now up until 2021, with Fox and everyone, we're not going to see it because no sport's seeing enough loss of revenue or loss in ratings to even consider allowing people to stream without cable. So like until something changes like that where Amazon or Facebook blows them away with an offer when their contract's up, we're just going to have the same problem every year. And they're not going to be able to allow stream anything.
Yeah, and there are some places, is it LA, I think, where you can't even watch Dodgers games on cable. Like, you can't watch Dodgers games. It's the craziest thing in the world that they don't even have a regional sports network that's airing their games. And these antiquated way of doing business is we have these huge deals with the TV channels, and they black out everybody in the viewing area so that it's exclusive and we can get paid a ton of money. But what you're doing is excluding fans rather than bringing in new fans.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. But they see this, they see what they're creating. They're like, oh, let's change the rules. It makes no sense.
That's what I don't understand. There's a lot of smart people in Major League Baseball. How do they not see that the answer is streaming? And it's a very simple answer.
Yeah,
they're
like
not
some of the
do anything to lose money though, and so like the money they get in ad revenue through these television contracts is why they're going to keep doing it. If they do exclusive to, like, Amazon gets exclusive MLB rights, they're going to lose a lot of money because they're not going to get the same advertisements.
But they could have it so that the people who already have the contracts with them also have the rights for the streaming. Like, you have to go to Fox's website and you can stream through that, so they can still run ads and do everything else they want to. I feel like there are ways around this, and I don't understand how they can't figure out a way to make it work.
I mean, there are ways around it, but even with that, like, you're still going to need cable. So, like, with NBC, like, you can watch any local NBC sports team, but you need cable. It's like that everywhere, but Masson's contract is really stupid, doesn't allow any of that, which could really help with the Nats, but everything you're going to need cable just because the money that they rack in from that. I mean, baseball made $11 billion last year. And if they lose ad revenue, who knows what it's going to be.
I just feel like there's got to be a way they can figure out to replace ad revenue for people who are watching it all. You could run the same commercials on the streaming that you're running on TV. There's no reason why you have to lose money on it.
Yeah, if they would actually market their game and market their stars like the NBA and the NFL does, they would have a lot more than 11 billion in revenue, but they refuse to market their stars and market their game.
Yeah. And, like, NBA Twitter is full of, like, 12-year-olds because NBA markets toward a younger generation with their players, and that's why their sports gain popularity. While it's still far behind baseball, but everyone has a favorite player, and baseball needs to allow people to do that and market on social media. Like, let people tweet out clips, let people actually download and view stuff on Twitter.
Yeah, it's crazy that you make it impossible for people to even share the cool stuff that's happening in baseball with people who aren't watching baseball already. It really makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, and you touched on it earlier, Amanda, like how many stars are on the West Coast that like are just forgotten because MLB doesn't market their game. They don't allow anyone to market their players. Mike Trout very well may be the best baseball player to ever live, and like to a non-baseball fan, they don't know who Mike Trout is.
He's otherwise known as who to anybody who doesn't already watch baseball. Like Bryce Harper is a household name to people who don't watch baseball, but that's largely because of Bryce Harper, not because of MLB.
Yeah, he's created his own brand, which a lot of baseball players don't do. Which I think like Nike could do a better job with it. Under Armour can do a better job with featuring them in commercials. Because a lot of baseball players have the endorsements, but they're just not really in commercials.
Yep.
But Bryce is in a ton of National League commercials.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we move on to our next topic, I just want to tell everybody who's listening about the library of podcasts from the DMV Sports Network. There are 9 active shows right now for the Redskins, Capitals, Nationals, Wizards, Ravens, Fantasy Fever, dealing with fantasy football, and a pair of shows, It's About Time DC and Dom and Thunder, that handle kind of multiple sports across DC and national topics as well. These are all available wherever your podcasts are found, so check them out. Leave reviews, subscribe. We really appreciate it. All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about Anthony Rendon, which the three of us have been arguing about a bit this week. So it seems like there's some Rendon isn't as good as everybody thinks he is vibe I was getting from you guys this week.
Yeah, I think Rendon's a very good player. He honestly, like, he's a top 20 guy in the league, but Nats fans have like begun to hype him up thinking he's like Mike Trout. And, like, he's a good player. He's going to produce 270, 20, 80 every single year, but he's not the elite guy everyone's making him out to be.
So my opinion of Rendon is I think he's great. I would love to have him on any single team I would ever like dream of. The problem is that if you look at, granted, it's a very biased list, but the MLB Top 100, Rendon was 21. What fans don't realize is that there's a huge maybe 2 or 3 teardrops within that top 20. Like Rendon isn't just like that far behind like the number 5 spot. Like he's legitimately like down a little bit. I mean, he's still a great player, but my opinion of Rendon is that he's the perfect number 2 guy. I don't think he's the one to lead a team. I don't think he's someone to necessarily build around. If you have a Bryce Harper, Rendon's the perfect complement to that. If you have a Mike Trout, same thing. Rendon's a perfect complement to that. Rendon's not like the guy you want. With that being said, I agree. Like if Bryce does end up signing elsewhere, you turn to Rendon as your biggest priority because you can't lose your number 1 and number 2 as far as your lineup goes. But everyone needs to calm down on the Rendon hype train because he is good, but he is not great.
All right, I disagree completely. I think he is great, and I think debate. Here, I understand what you're saying about him not being the number 1. I think personality-wise, he's a very reserved guy. He's quiet. I don't know that he's really kind of your clubhouse leader type, but as you know, he last year he hit .308. He had 24 homers, 44 doubles. He had a 6.3 FWAR, and I understand that WAR isn't everything. I get it. But he was also a Gold Glove finalist. He had a .981 fielding percentage, which was top among qualified National League third basemen. So I don't understand how you can say he's not great. I mean, he's in the top 5 easily of third basemen in baseball. Like, how can you say that this is not a great player? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And to the Nats, especially if Harper's gone, he's the biggest bat in your lineup, except maybe Soto. But Soto, you've been predicting a sophomore slump. You know, yep. I don't know what we're going to get from Soto. He's young, and we haven't seen very much of him. You know what you're going to get from Anthony Rendon. He is a solid, reliable, excellent ball player. And I think the argument that he's not great is crazy.
I'm not saying like he doesn't belong on the team, but people are literally talking about him like he's Mike Trout. He's not. Like
I have not heard anyone argue that he is anywhere close to Mike Trout.
Yeah, I mean, I have. Like, I have seen it, but it's just such a
place. Like, well, idiots on Twitter don't necessarily count. I'm just saying. There are people who think we don't need Harper because we have Taylor. So
don't call my lovely followers idiots. Only I.
It's just it's coming from such a biased point of view. Like, people are unable to see Rendon like clearly. They just think he's just this God-sent third baseman, which, I mean, yeah, he's top 5, but there still is a teardrop from the top 4 or the top 3 and then Rendon, wherever he falls.
Right. But granted, I'm not saying he's in the top 3. I think there are better third basemen in baseball, obviously, but he's the most important player, in my opinion, on the Nats this season, assuming Bryce Harper does not come back. I think as Anthony Rendon goes, this season is going to go for the Nationals, and he should be their absolute top priority, and he should be treated by them as a guy who needs to be re-signed. Whatever it takes to re-sign him, they need to do it. If everybody's like, throw all the money in the world at Bryce Harper, and I agree with that. I would love for them to get Bryce Harper back, but they need to not be stingy when it comes to Rendon, because you can't lose Rendon and Harper back-to-back years.
Based on the comments yesterday, it sounds like they're being pretty stingy with him.
Well, Mark Lerner's an idiot.
Well, yeah, we're not that part I won't disagree with, but he is not getting that 7 for 160 that he's demanding. Like, he won't get that.
That's an opening position. I would think though 7145 or 7145. I don't think 20 million or so, 21 million a year is outside the realm of what he deserves.
No, I think he gets 20 million for 6 years. That's my prediction on him.
Yeah, I can see something around that. I
don't think he's going to beat Altuve's contract like he wants to do, but I can see like 120, 125 over 6 for him, honestly.
And I honestly don't know why he is comparing himself to Altuve. Altuve, his resume is insanely better than Rendon's. So I don't know, like, shoot for the stars, yeah, by all means, but that is
and I don't know that he is comparing himself. I think that's reports
no, I'm not saying comparing himself, but like, in terms of contracts, yeah, that's what Altuve ended up getting. Granted, it was an extension. It wasn't Altuve hit the open market, but I mean, that's not, in my opinion, what you want to shoot for. But then again, we haven't really had like a good baseline for a third baseman who hit free agency. Like the last big one was like Pablo Sandoval.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't want him to hit free agency. I think they need to get him on an extension.
He's going to hit free agency. Like that just, yeah.
That's the way it's for us.
Yeah. He said he's going to, like, he's open to negotiating throughout the season, but I don't think Nats will do that like too much. I think it's going to come.
I think the Nats need to do what it takes to get him signed before he hits free agency, because if he does hit free agency and they decide not to re-sign him, we would have lost Harper and then Rendon in consecutive years, and I think that is a terrible.
Oh no, that would be
terrible thing.
Yeah, that's awful. And yeah, that was kind of my point. You can't lose your 1 and your 2. I think my greater point, and maybe it got lost, is that if it came down to choosing between Harper and Rendon, the choice is Harper.
Right, but that's not the choice.
I think it is, but I mean, who knows? Who knows?
I don't know. I think if they sign, I don't think that whether they re-sign Harper, if they do, I don't think it's going to affect their decision to try to re-sign Rendon. And I think if you're going to do something fair, I think he's going to want 7 years rather than 6. And I think you need to give him like a 21 million a year AAV over 7 years. And that would probably get it done before he hits free agency. And I think that if the Nats are smart, especially if they lose Bryce, they're going to just do that and get him locked up so they're not dealing with another huge free agent issue.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I don't think signing Harper would necessarily signal the end for Rendon. My point was just if it did come down to one or the other, the choice is Harper.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think it'll come to that.
Because the Nats are going to let him walk and they're signing Nolan Arenado. Book it.
Yep, and then Mike Trout in 2020, baby.
Yep.
Right. It's all happening, people.
Yeah,
it's all happening.
It's Marky Mark's plan.
Oh, my. Okay. Let's talk about some Twitter questions we got from listeners this week. We got from @BLimperis. Aside from Robles and Kieboom, are there any Nats prospects to keep an eye on or that we should be excited about?
So I responded to him right away. Like the short answer is no. But if you dive into it, like the MLB Pipeline tweeted out the list of the Nats top 10 prospects for the past 10 years.
Oh, bad.
And you just look at that, and if you
it's
follow
depressing.
if you follow that follow the Nats for any amount of time, like you can see that is not very good.
So much AJ Cole.
Too much AJ. Seeing AJ Cole is too much AJ Cole.
Yeah.
But
5 years, though, out of the 5 years he spent on the top 10 prospect list, which is crazy to think about.
I mean, that means he wasn't good enough to ever make it to the MLB for 5 years. But no, the short answer is no. But that doesn't necessarily mean the Nats aren't positioned well. It just means that prospects, as we've said, don't really pan out. And if they do, it takes 3 to 5 years. I mean, Giolito was on there for 3 years, and maybe that's not the best example, but he was the number 1 prospect in baseball at one point, and he was still there for 3 years. Robles I think he's on his 3rd or 4th year on that list. That doesn't mean he won't pan out, but the question was, aside from Robles and Kieboom, and there isn't, but again, that doesn't condemn the Nats and their farm system.
And there are a couple of names that we've seen before. One is Rowdy Reed, who was the catcher, who I think then got a PED suspension, but he's still on the top 10 list for this year, I think, or on some people's top 10 lists for the Nats this year. So interesting to see how he'll pan out. He got an 80-game suspension.
Looking at this list is kind of depressing because it kind of shows that 1, the Nats don't draft well, and 2, man, they cannot develop people.
Yeah, a lot of people never make it up to the big leagues that come in and spend a lot of time on their top 10 list.
The guy that they traded for Doolittle and Madsen, granted, that's a great trade and should have been.
Luzardo, yeah.
Yeah, he's now the number 1 lefty prospect in baseball for pitching, and he wasn't that highly regarded when he was with the Nats. So
that's because the Nats are terrible at developing pitchers.
Oh, man.
Look at Trinan. Trinan's probably the best reliever in baseball now.
That is hard to take.
And formerly Felipe Rivero, Felipe Vasquez with the Pirates, now he's a dominant closer, and he was a joke while he was with the Nats. There's some sort of problem. But for the people who haven't seen the list, if we look at the top 10 just from last year, so the top 5, you have Robles, Soto, Kieboom, Fedde, Seth Romero. So Robles is still number 1. Soto is obviously on the team. We talked about Kieboom. Fedde is a bust. I mean, that's not anything to be excited about. Seth Romero, I don't even know if he's in the organization. He had some sort of like meltdown, and they like sent him home.
They sent him to the farm upstate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with all the other dogs.
Yeah, that didn't work out well.
Yeah, and then if you look at like the next 5, Luis Garcia, Antuna, Crow, Johnson, Gutierrez, like none of them. Well, Crow is, but none of them like are still on the top 10 list like this year.
There's Wilmer Defoe on here a couple of times.
Yeah, so that's really all you need to know. End of Twitter question. Like, prospects suck.
All right, let's move on to the next question. We got from @OnePursuit22. How effective will the Nats bullpen be?
This is a great question. I think the bullpen's gonna be the biggest issue this season. I think they're gonna struggle big time, and it's just gonna be Doolittle is gonna be the good one. Everyone else gonna struggle, and we're gonna struggle getting the game to him. What I really want to see them do, which I know they're not going to do, is they should trade Keyboom and get a great bullpen arm in return for him, which would be very smart to do. So you have someone locked down in the 8. But
I don't want to trade Keyboom.
The second basemen are stacked in free agency next year.
Yeah, they are. It's just
I hear you, but there's a great reliever available in free agency right now. Why not sign him and keep Keyboom?
Well, he hasn't come down on his $100 million over 6 years request.
So. Yeah, he actually just said that if he doesn't get his demands, he's willing to sit out.
Somebody said he said that, but then his agent came out and said he absolutely has never said that. That's insane.
I think that's more damage control than anything.
Yeah, maybe. Probably.
But
maybe. I don't think Kurt Kimbrell's going to be willing to sit out the season.
No. I don't think so either. But the point is, he's not coming down from his asking price. Like that's the larger point.
I'll bet if you offered him a pile of money in about another 2 weeks, if he's still out there for a 2 or 3 year deal, I'll bet you he'd
consider. After on March 25th was really desperate.
Yeah, I mean that's just the game that teams and Kimbrell's Campbell just have to gamble on and see how it turns out.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I think that the bullpen's likely to be their biggest weakness. Obviously Doolittle is great. I mean, they got Rosenthal, who's been a closer, but I don't know what we're going to see from him.
Right.
We got a who was supposed to be a closer last year, and that didn't work out so well for us. So
yeah, the one silver lining is that the past few trade deadlines, like Rizzo has gone out and gotten bullpen help. So I mean, we can kind of expect that to
true, but it wasn't enough this year. They had lost too many games before the trade deadline for it to matter.
Right, but I think we're in a better position moving into the season than we were last year. Like last year, there's still a lot of question marks going into the season. Like Michael A. Taylor was our starter, for God's sakes. Like, yeah, that team was not destined to do anything.
Rotation.
Yep.
All right, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that. Okay, from @Dom and Thunder, our pal from the DMV Sports Network, we got what's worse, Davies constantly changing lineups or FP Santangelo's voice?
Well,
that's rude, Dom.
As much
as
no, he has a point.
Davies lineup changing so annoying. That kills guys, and like no one wants to talk about that. You can't get in the just rolling with it, and every time you're in a different spot in the lineup, your approach is completely different, and that really messes with guys. And I don't like Davies, so I'm always going to choose that he's the worst out of everything. FP sucks also, but Davey really needs to be.
I don't know. I'm not an FP hater, so he's a homer for the Nats, and I love that. I like when I watch my home team feed on. I want to listen to the radio feed that's from my team. I want to watch the TV feed that's from my team. I want homers talking about my team. And he even came out last year and said something about that. Like, I'm not a sports radio guy. It's not my job to be controversial. Like, I work for Masson and I work for the Nats, and that's what I do.
So the worst type of people, they like support FP no matter what. The Michael A. Taylor stands. They think Zim should start every game. They love Jason Worth, even though he was awful.
Well, they're fans who are emotional rather than analytical.
Those are the worst types. Those are the worst types. Like, don't at me. Like, if you let your emotions drive like your opinion on reality, like it's not good.
It's true. Although, for some people who are casual fans, like what sports fandom is about for a lot of people is about the emotional investment in your team and support your team no matter what. For people who are wanting to be in the sports media, or to, for people who are doing podcasts like we are, or who are writing, your job is to be analytical, but that's not necessarily something that everybody needs to do.
FP says some of the dumbest things. It's not even like his voice or his pitch. Like, he is just an idiot. Like he is just so dumb in what he says. Like, and like obviously everything we're saying is opinionated, but if you look at the rankings for like the broadcast, the Nats have always been in like the lower, like definitely the lower half, but always the bottom like 10 or bottom 5.
I'll tell you, one of my all-time favorite FP things was when it was a spring training game that was on Masson a few years ago. I don't even remember any of the details about the game, but they're, sort of panning back from the scene and you can see the sun. And he says, the sun is big. And Bob just sits there silently, and FP said, and you can't get that kind of analysis just anywhere.
Honestly, and that's exactly everything he says.
See, I don't hate that, though. It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
So
Scherzer's throwing hard today. Yeah, no, yeah, of course he's throwing hard, you idiot. Like, FP's just so...
It makes me laugh.
Dumb.
I'm not an FP hater. We'll have to agree to disagree.
I mean, my favorite FP moment hasn't happened yet because that'll be the day that he's no longer on the Nats broadcast.
Oh, that's hateful.
So...
That's hateful. So anyway, my answer is Davey's constantly changing lineups or worse.
Oh, well, I don't think Davey's a good manager either.
Davey's going to ruin this team. No one's talking about that. But that's a conversation.
That's a conversation I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of times over the course of the season.
They're both awful, Dom. There's your answer.
All right. Moving on. At HRooney8, also of the DMV Sports Network, asks, assuming Bryce is gone, who now has the best beard on the team?
This is tough because we've lost a lot of big beards in the past couple of years. We're like sorely lacking on the facial hair. And I swear to God, if you say Aaron Barrett, I am leaving so quickly because he does not deserve to be on a mound at all. And I don't care.
I don't know if we can say whether he deserves it or not. He's just coming off an injury.
So
it's the perfect time to find out whether he's got it anymore.
No, he does not have it.
Disagree and you want to argue? Gladly will do that.
Yeah, he never had it. Like, he has never had it before in his life.
He's not going to be on the roster when the season starts, so it doesn't really matter. What difference does it make?
Well, he needs to stop ruining my spring training.
You didn't even watch the game.
Fake news. No, but I think, there's not like that impact beard. I think that's what we're really missing.
Rendon's had it before. Yeah. He's done the facial hair thing. He doesn't have it now, but I think, in the past.
Doolittle, I don't know what Strauss is looking like nowadays, but Doolittle's the answer.
No matter what Strauss is looking like, it is not an impact beard.
Okay, but I think it's just Doolittle right now. Like, that's really the only answer. But
looking at the Nats website, and Austin Adams has a pretty ferocious thick beard.
All right.
So little dark horse contender for beard of the year.
But how about for people who are going to be on the roster on opening day?
Okay, well, the good news for the Nats is there's a great beard on the free agent market that'll only cost you like $350 million.
Jason,
so Jesus Christ, Ryan. So.
Oh my. Okay. Well, on that note, I think we can finish up here. For everybody who listened, thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love it if you'd leave us a review. You can find me again on Twitter. I'm Amanda White at awhite7877. You can find Nick and Ryan at DC Natchak. And you can follow the pod at Half Street High Heat on Twitter. Also, don't forget to check out the DMVSportsNetwork.com. You can follow them on Instagram and Twitter at DMV_SN. And if you're interested in joining the DMV Sports Network team, they're always looking for writers and podcasters. You can contact them via Twitter. You can send a DM, or you can email them at dmvsportsnetwork@outlook.com. So thanks everybody for listening. And I guess I will talk to you guys next week.
See you guys
later. Bring Bryce home.
Give me the bridge now. I feel like busting loose. Give me the bridge now. I feel like busting loose now. Busting loose in the evening. Busting loose can be pleased.